guys. Um, I figured it seemed like the video went all right. You guys were gentle to me. I kind of felt okay to make that video. I was happy that I had a pretty good reception on it, so I figured I should make another video. So, is it about Bahrain right now? I'll try to make something about that, but I thought I would share a story. So, I went back talking about how impactful emotionally and everything on these trips that I take. But, it's not always just me that has the impact. So, I thought I'd tell you a story about my mom. Anyone who knows my mom, you can imagine, you understand her Venezuelan rocket personality is the best way to put it. And she's a very interesting woman who coincidentally led me down on the path as she was an immigrant from Venezuela herself. And one of the things she always taught me was like, Jonathan, America's great. We have a wonderful country, but there's a whole other world out there. And, I didn't listen to that for a while. My brother and my sister and my parents ended up going to Europe a few times and even offered for me to go with them. And I was like, nah, I'm just going to sit on the computer, and that's an old me. But here's a story I thought I would share. So, there was a time, my mom was dealing with stuff, and sometimes I'd like to think I'm kind of an armchair psychologist of sorts. If you've ever had deep conversations with me, I hope I could at least get a little bit of that to people where I think I'm able to help just a little bit. But, sometimes my medicine is unconventional. So for my mom, having some woes, you know, from life. I was like, you know what, Mom? I think it's time. And she's like, Jonathan, what is it time for? It's like, Mom, I'm gonna fly you out somewhere, and we're gonna figure this out. And she's like, huh? And I don't think she took much time to think about it. It was immediate. You know what? I think so, Jonathan. I really do think so. So I ended up using, some of my tricks to get cool fares and stuff. So I was happy. I ended up finding a good fare, and I was able to fly my mom over on a business class. So that in itself was a treat to be able to give something like that to your parents is awesome. I wish. I don't know. That's how I was maybe raised, or maybe this comes from just everything I've seen. But giving back to your parents is important in life, and I'm happy I did that. So, I got to give my mom a little bit of luxury and kind of fun. So I ended up flying her to, I want to say, Madrid. And here's the funny thing. I kind of trained my mom up. My mother is, in a way, how do I put it, frugal. Both of my parents are. So if you don't know, we grew up from, I hate to say because everyone probably says it, humble roots. We had beginnings that weren't necessarily Franklin and Brentwood. Growing up in Jersey, my parents gave us the most. And Mom would kill me. He's like, "Are you trying to say we were poor?" No, it was just it was middle class, but it was New Jersey middle class. So with that being said, my mother understood the cost of traveling, and she was trying to figure it out. So for her, she's like, I'm going on this kind of ticket, and everything, I want to make it worth it. Why would I spend 1 week here if I already had something so grand to do as far as the flight? And she was like, you know what, I'm going to figure this out. So we sat down. I was like, okay, Mom, I understand frugal travel methods. There are people who travel and will backpack Europe who are able to figure out a way to do it less than 27, 35, $40 a day. I don't prescribe to that. I understand it. I don't necessarily have to do that. I've met a lot of people that have criticized how I travel, and that's okay. We all travel differently, and you will never catch me criticizing if you want to stay in the biggest luxury hotel in the world and never leave the property, or if you feel like sitting with mosquito nets out in a local park backpacking and hitchhiking is your thing. That's the thing. I've done a little bit of it all. You get good and bad from all of it. So, with that being said, we decided to start implementing and understanding frugal travel strategies, which means carry on only, Eurojet, Ryanair type of airlines, understanding the rail system, and hostels. So, yeah, I said it, hostels. My mother at the time, I want to say she's 62 years old. You know, she's in good health, thankfully. And we started this out. So she flew to Madrid, and I had everything set up. So I made sure she had data. I made sure that I was connected to her. But we planned this out, and she was going to be out there for 2.5, 3 weeks on her own. So I had hostels planned out throughout, I want to say Madrid and Barcelona, and she went on her own because that was the point of it. So kind of the lesson I taught her was don't be afraid of using public transportation. You don't have to stay in the downtown center of the city. One of my biggest gripes about going to Europe, it's like you could take a 20-minute train and save like 150 euros and stay in a nicer hotel room. You don't have to walk to everything, trust me. The freaking water taxis, the trams, they all work great, but I digress. I won't get into that. But my mother figured this out. With help on me, I kind of created an itinerary. So my mother at 62 years old was going through hostels with a backpack, carry on only, because that's another thing that I make sure people do. And and this was how she was doing it. So she picked up, what grocery stores to go to, brought all her little food from the groceries, and even when they had breakfast at the hostels, even though if you've been to hostels in Europe, it's like a piece of bread, maybe a hard-boiled egg. My mom, it's like a little squirrel. She'd probably stuff some in her cheeks, like, well, I'm gonna keep this so I don't have to necessarily eat lunch. But it's just out of how she operates. So I was really happy. She got accustomed to that. I didn't tell her that I had a backup plan. I know the right hotels, the right things. If she had to pull the ripcord, I knew exactly what to do. But I never told her that because what would be the fun of that? So it ended up, my mother traveled for 3 weeks on her own. She went and did some of St. James Way. She met some other ladies her age that were kind of doing the other thing. Like, believe it or not, there's a lot of people who are 50 plus who are taking these trips. And, if you ever think, hey, I'm young, that's why I'm doing that. Or, it's a young people's game. Not at all. There are older people staying in hostels nowadays, myself included, and you'd be surprised at some of the things you get to learn from that. So, it's kind of a funny story. My mother was just backpacking on her own, going to different cities. And this is when I came in. So she speaks Spanish, so Spain is one thing. And being able to speak Spanish, she was fine getting around and stuff. And here's where it got interesting. I flew in to meet her. I was like, you know what? I'm going to meet my mom and we're going to go travel together. So we ended up traveling together, and I met her in Madrid, and she had stayed there for a week. So we went ahead and decided, okay, Madrid was cool. Then we went to Sevilla, and, I have my methods of staying in nicer hotels. So now my mom gets to stay in nice hotels with me. So we stay in Sevilla. Sevilla is a wonderful city, probably my favorite city in Spain. And it was just, a moment that my mom was keeping up with me. She has a lot of energy. even with her age, she'll keep up, and I was kind of impressed by it. So we did all the things, visited, hung out. I remember one video she made. Went to a McDonald's that served beer, so we got a beer. She's like, "They serve beer at McDonald's. What is this?" If I can find that video, I should share it. But there's some of those funny things in Europe that you find. But of course, seeing the grand stuff out there, but also Sevilla. Some of the memories are what do you call it? Some of the buskers, and some of the music is just beautiful. And we even did one of the flamenco shows. So we started traveling. So I was like, I decided we were gonna get a little different on this. And I had been to Morocco before, but it's been a while, and I was a much different traveler back then when I went to Fez. So I was like, all right, Mom, we're gonna go along the coastline, and we're gonna figure out how to kind of visit some new countries. So we went to Aguaquias. It's basically where you take the ferry to get over to Morocco. But before we did that, I like to consider bonus trips, inception trips, like you're on a vacation and you do something inside of that vacation. Travel in a different place. That's a little trademark thing that I do. So we had a vacation inception, and we decided to do a quick day trip to Gibraltar. And I have to tell you the story about Gibraltar and my mom. We were driving around, not driving around, we were just getting there, and we went to Gibraltar. Gibraltar's great. You go up to the top, you see the monkeys, you understand the fortification of there, the importance in World War II of the lookout, the posts, and it's kind of cool understanding how much traffic is going through that one little area. But the funny thing is, my mother and I, we decided, we're taking public transportation. Didn't have enough change, so sometimes it's good to keep a lot of euros on you, because not everything's credit card. Yeah, that's everywhere in the world. So we take a bus, and at the end of the bus, I was short change, and the poor guy was, just asking in Spanish, like, yeah, where's more money? And I was like, Mom, habla español. Help out. So my mom gets nervous, and she pretends she doesn't speak Spanish. She's like, I was like, Mom, he's speaking Spanish. And she's like, oh. And I was like, okay. So Mom left me out to dry on that. Luckily, he was understanding. We're talking about 40 euro cents or whatever. So it wasn't anything bad or anything I felt bad about. So we were able to get where we were going from there. Then, we ended up going to Morocco, and I went to Morocco to kind of try to scare my mom. A lot of people who haven't visited a place like that are like, ooh, I don't know, dangerous stuff happens. Not really, but, my mom wasn't scared. I was actually kind of surprised on that. We ended up going to some of the souks, some of the areas, and two stories I want to get from here. Impactful. You wonder what kind of impact, and this is one of them. I only thought about this because I had met a couple that I've been hanging out with, an American who's Navy out here, and her Indian expat boyfriend who's living and working here. And it was, what are some of the impactful moments that happened during your travels type of question. So for me, I try to pride myself on being nice, being the good person, and trying to have a good heart. Sometimes it always doesn't work that way, My mom reminded me of this, so here's how the story goes. We're at a little courtyard area over in the old city, over in Tangier, and we're eating, so it's like have some freaking Moroccan chicken with the couscous and the ceramic little thing of how they cook it. Of course, some Moroccan chicken, some of the best chicken you could get, and they know how to do the tricks with it. So while we're sitting there, there's kids kind of at a distance, kind of staring. I'm like, the heck? You know, when you have people staring at you when you're eating, it's a little disturbing. So for me, I caught myself. I didn't catch myself. I was like, yeah, you know, what, you know, what the hell? And you know, this was one of those moments where my mom kind of put me back in line. She's like, Jonathan, they're hungry, and I was like, wait, what? They're like, there's three kids. They're just hungry, and I was like, oh. And that was one of those moments that, you know, sometimes we have these bad feelings. I was disgusted, and I hate saying that, but these are the ways how you learn to get beyond that. And my mom was just like, they're kids, and they just want to eat, and that was one of those moments that really made me think. And they wanted our scraps. Um, and it feels weird giving scrap food to someone. You know, it's like I don't want to feel that way where I'm at this level where I am above someone in a way that here's my scrap food. But that it's kind of sad. It's the world we live in. But the realization of kind of probably the happiness that it brought those kids, they probably don't get to eat the best of food and not often. I don't know their story. Of course, you know, I imagine the country tries to do the most it can and its people, but there are hungry people in this world. And I was kind of taken aback to think that this meal that we had, it was pretty big, you know, and they probably saw us as Americans. They're like, they eat so much, we're going to put all this stuff on a plate. But we had plenty, and thinking about it, it was like that was probably one of those kids' better meals that they've had in a while, and that's such a weird realization. Um, I was happy to do it though, so it's not like, you know, I wouldn't do it, and sometimes I think we get caught up in that kind of feeling um, with helping people. Sometimes you gotta know where you're at in your own life to understand where other people are at, and dare I use the word privileged? Absolutely. Understanding our privilege as Americans, some money, a lot of money, a little bit of money, even we're pretty privileged in our country. But not to get into that tangent. It was just a lesson for my mom. I was like, Jonathan, those kids are just hungry. Don't you dare have that kind of feeling you just had. She didn't know I felt that way because I keep quiet about these things. But as soon as she told me, they're just hungry. It was like right at me. So that right there is, you know, memories. Memories built by emotion. The most emotionally moments in our life are what we remember. We don't remember the little bits. So for me, I'm able to experience those emotions a lot because I put myself into those situations, and I feel like I'm able to build this life rich with emotion and memory. And there's so many like that. And that goes all the way back to the first video of why do I do what I do. So on a lighter note of a story of my mom, so we ended up, you know, doing our thing, going around the Medina. And while we're around at the Medina, oh shoot, did my phone drop? I hope it didn't drop. I hope you're staying where it needs to be. Hold on. Let me check it. Nope. Sorry. Technical difficulty. Check to make sure I'm alright. So the other story with my mom is we were going, and some of the day tours are set up in such a way that they bring you to gift shops. It's a scam. If you ever have it happen, just call it out. Be like, "Meh," really. Even tours booked on reputable sites like TripAdvisor and Viator, they have these tours, and you'll end up two things about it. You'll end up at a gift shop, which is crap. I get it. There's some kind of kickback. It's a tourist thing that works. Maybe you go somewhere. Then the other part is they have a set restaurant. That's always Western as crap. It's like, oh, it's kind of local, but we're gonna appease to the Americans, and it's like, no. You go travel. You don't want the place that Americans are comfortable going. Um, so we went on one of these tours, and at the end of it, they did this thing where it's like, come, come, my friend. You will hear my friend so much traveling, especially in the Middle East. My friend, come. And we went to a rug shop. So I was like, okay, give us some tea. We're going to be hospitable, good Americans, because we're polite. And we do this thing, and man, let me tell you, you will never learn how to haggle or to shop or to really deal with salesmanship in such a level unless you go to the Middle East, unless you have to haggle in Northern Africa, in Egypt, Morocco, or the Middle East. You don't know what haggling is. I'm sure the people who have gone, or some of my brothers that are from the countries that I'm friends with, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And as an introvert, that's one of those things that I hate. Just tell me the price. But so we get into here, and this guy is dead set on selling us a rug. It's like ABC, always be closing. And this guy's just like, give me the credit card. I know you like this one. We'll ship it, pack it up. And my mom's strategy of these uncomfortable conversations is she's usually tough, but she was like, my son, my son has the money. It's like, Mom, quit it. So I have to get, into that aggro mode, like, no, we are not buying. I thank you and appreciate you for showing us this stuff. And, it takes about 15, 20 minutes of wiggle out of that. You literally almost have to walk out and you feel like you're being impolite. Never worry about stopping yourself in those situations about politeness. Sometimes you just have to walk away. Absolutely, you have to walk away. So, if any travel tip right there, walk away. It's okay. You're not gonna have the polite gods or whatever the newspaper or Dear Abby is come back on you. Just walk away. That's the one thing that they know how to work on with our American sensibilities, British sensibilities, and they'll do it to you every time. So just walk away. But I just thought it was funny that my mom was even so pressured. She's like, he's the one with the money. He knew better. He was like, no, I know Mom has money. Mom has the credit card. So that was kind of to sum up. Morocco was great. My mother wasn't she wasn't scared. We did have a good time there. It was enjoyable, and we ended up going back to Madrid. And funny enough, is I left my mom. So after that, my mom traveled for another month, month and a half, hitting multiple countries, going to Rome, Prague, checking things out on her own. So I helped kind of train her a little bit, but I was kind of happy that I was able to give an experience for my mom to backpack like a college kid, Euro tripping for 2 months at the age of, I want to say 62. And one of the other things I ended up doing on that trip was, my dad missed her. So I was like, all right, Dad. I know you're going to miss Mom. So I ended up flying my dad to meet my mother in Paris. And they were able to travel together. Even though my dad got his phone stolen. That's a whole other thing. My brother, my sister, and my dad have all had things happen. Me and my mom, we're kind of samey on we keep watching stuff, and I gotta mess with my brother, dad, and sister. My dad had the escalator thing. He had the shade in the front, stop at the end of the escalator, the person behind him, pop it in the back. He left his cell phone in his back pocket. I gotta mess with you, Dad, Jerry and Erica, on this. You gotta have that instinct that me and Mom have. But that in itself, the trip, wasn't necessarily my trip. This was a trip I gave to my mom. So a lot of the travel impact isn't just for me. And I get so much from that. I've helped others take trips with me or not without me. And that's kind of why this is a part of my life. It's not just about me. It's never been just about me. I know Facebook, you can kind of see all that stuff. And I wish I could share more moments with you guys to be like, this isn't just me trying to do like, look at me, look at me. It's about the people I meet, the social situations, the thing I give back, what I learn. My sister-in-law always says, it's like, better stick around because you're going to be the uncle with the best stories for my children growing up. And I am going to appreciate being able to do that, especially traveling. One of the nieces, Ryan, she's getting old enough where I'm gonna end up trying to take her on a flight, but you know that's kind of the fun parts in life right now. But I just thought I'd share kind of an overall story of the impact of everything it does to me. Hopefully you guys didn't get too bored with that. Thank you for listening to me if you listened all this way. And be sure to mess with my mother about the story.